So you guys know I'm having Peace and Deluxe mixture in this. My name is Will, I host The Board Book Geek, and I've waited 10 years for this book. This is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. Right now, I feel like someone's groovy uncle at the Hawaiian-themed party. All I'm missing is some tiki torches and some ridiculous drinks and a coconut shell. What is to sleep in a sea of stars? During a routine survey mission on an uncolonized planet, she finds an alien artifact. At first she is delighted, but that turns to terror as the ancient dust around her begins to move. A war erupts amongst the stars. She is launched into a galaxy-spanning odyssey of discovery and transformation. First contact isn't at all what she imagined, even pushes her to the very limits of what it means to be human. While she faces her own horrors, Earth and its colonies stand on the brink of annihilation. She might be humanity's greatest and final hope. First things first, the review copy is not the full book, which is fine, I get that. I will be buying the full copy. Dear God, I will be buying the full copy. This is a massive odyssey into space. This is big, it's epic, in your face, and it's well written. Sorry about shaky cam. So where do we start? I'm genuinely blown away by the amount of characterization. These characters are rounded and full, and there's so much going on. They're so rich and dense. It's stunning. You never feel like you're being pulled out of it. You never feel like these characters exist just to be there and go away. These characters are earnest. They are brilliantly written, and they definitely flow with a strong narrative and a strong point of view. No one feels weak. It's interesting looking at this because I think, but the actual beautiful book that this is, the only thing that lets it down is there's not enough of it. Everyone's complaining, oh, it's so long, it's 800 pages. That's not long. Have you not read adult science fiction? That's what else I found hilarious, is that a lot of people are expecting it to be a YA science fiction, which I don't know where that idea came from. This is adult space opera, where YA science fiction tends to be more focused on the character's narrative and their builds, their struggle, and usually a love story. This isn't. This is focused on the characters, but the world and everything around it is equally as important. Yes, there are some drags in the book, but they're there for a reason. It intentionally slows you down to build you back up. You never feel like you're being, like, oh, I've got 10 pages of dullness. You've got 10 pages of a slightly slower story. There's some interesting subplots that come in as well, where characters kind of go off on their own little tangent and you get the other things. I like the fact the characters are a little bit stereotypy because they need to be strong. You need strong archetype characters in this because it would be very easy for soft characters to get lost in the background. And I like the fact that the love story isn't rammed down your throat. There is nothing worse than tacked on love stories and tacked on boring love stories like, oh my god, I love you, now we're going to save the universe together. I cannot stand that. It becomes dull, it becomes detritus in the background, and I end up going, I don't want to read this because I want to know what's going to happen next in the wider viewpoint, the story, not just who is putting who in what hole. I am looking forward to seeing what a hard copy of this book looks like because it's absolutely gorgeous. The writing and Paolini's books are pretty anyway. It's interesting going into this as a reader, someone that grew up with Paolini's work. My previous video about the inheritance cycle, Aragon and its books. It's interesting looking at Paolini now and seeing how far his writing has come. Well, people forget he was a teenager when he wrote Aragon. So yeah, it's a little tropey, it's a little fluffy, but he was a teenager. I couldn't have written that when I was 15. Like shit. One of those big, epic, expansive, well-researched space operas. This is nice, soft, fun science fiction with a narrative that fits. This is world-defining and world-changing in terms of what's happening in the story, and it's refreshing to see that. So much of the time, you end up reading a science fiction novel and just kind of being bored by it because there's nothing happening, or it's so focused on the main character's POV that you end up getting the actual science fiction becomes lost in the background. It's the reason I can't read YA science fiction, because effectively it's a romance novel with a sci-fi skin, which is really annoying. And the worst example of that is the Zenith by the god-awful Sasha Alsberg. When it comes to big space opera science fiction, this is the book to go to. It's beautiful, it's big, it's epic, it's expansive, and I couldn't put it down. I inhaled the 800 pages over 4 days. Well, not 800 pages, because this is not the full book. It stops short. I'm curious to see where it will end. I'm curious to see how it will go. I get the feeling this is going to be a series, so I'm excited. I don't think there's a lot of plot points and a lot of stuff set up that I don't know could be finished in just one book. This is probably one of the best science fiction novels I've read in years.